Hello, welcome to another YouTube Live. Hello, welcome. Here we are, Monday again with another class, a free class. Every Monday I'm here. Obviously, depending on, sometimes there are bank holidays, there are occasionally a couple of Mondays that I don't do, though usually, regularly, every Monday at 7 Central European Time, I'm here. And there's a free class for you to join. So today's topic is all about negative self-talk. Now, this is a big one, big topic, and this is something that I've worked with many people over the years, the last 10 years, talking about negative self-talk and some simple, quick tips that we can do to really come out of that cycle, because often it's like this loop, it's this cycle of we end up going around all these stories and thought patterns and I'm this, I'm that, or all the judgments and self-criticism. So some simple, quick tips to move out of that and to really start creating a little bit more tenderness with ourselves. And much of my background is in NLP, and now I blend it with creative arts and dance and lots of other wonderful things like the sacred science of numbers as well. That's part of it, part of what I do, what I call creating change. And so today will be a little bit more about the NLP. So NLP focusing on the mind, the emotions, and the self-talk, because a lot of NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, a lot of that's to do with the linguistics, how we communicate to ourselves, how we communicate to others. And yes, negative self-talk, that's all about the communication, the linguistics. And this is something that virtually every single person on this planet has experienced at some point, if not regularly on a daily basis. And I'm no exception. I've been practicing NLP for many years, and it's still something that I use. It's not a click your fingers once and everything's sorted ever again, and for the rest of your life you never have to do any more inner work. No, that's not how it works. And if anyone's selling that, then I would be wary of that. Though it's more about having this wonderful toolkit that you can use to then, whenever you're in situations where you feel like you're lacking self-confidence, or you are feeling a particular emotion, or you are noticing that negative self-talk, that you have these tools and techniques to use. Now, there are many different varieties or ways that people use NLP out there in the world, and some of them I love, and some of them they're not really how I would teach NLP. And when I was teaching practitioners in Barcelona, I would call what I do wholehearted NLP, because it's really about coming back to the heart, coming back to you, like remembering who we truly are, rather than creating this whole new persona or person. Sometimes it can feel like that, but it's more about clearing away the cobwebs and coming back to the truth of who we are, and remembering that within and living life from that. So how I use NLP is slightly different sometimes. I focus on, so for example, goal setting is a very big thing in coaching and NLP. And if I'm working with a client to set goals, I'm very mindful about helping them to really remember, like, what's the underlying thing that they're looking for underneath that goal, because often it's not about the money or the relationship or the weight or the new house or whatever it is. It's about a feeling, and that feeling can be connected to regardless of the outcome. So it doesn't mean that we can't set goals, though it's being mindful of we actually have so much of what we want already. It's just disguised in a different way. So that's how I use it. And rather than focusing on goals and this and that and the other, and really like pushing forward and moving forward, which can be wonderful to help us move out of stuck situations, it's also really wonderful to remember that we have so much already, so much of what we want already. It's just waking up to that and waking up to the gifts of the present moment. And also with NLP, sometimes there can be the tendency to want to use techniques to rush past emotions or not to feel them. And I encourage clients to feel them and really be mindful of them, how they work somatically within the body. And then we can find the message there from the emotions, and also like really uncover wonderful gifts of that emotion. And then, if needed, we can use NLP techniques to help move out of a stuck state if needed. But usually by that point, it's not needed. And also with NLP, there are many different, I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. And it's more about like how I use it is really coming back to the truth of who we are. Remembering that, as I said in the beginning, like coming back to the truth of who we are. We have these stories of the mind. The mind loves to focus on these stories of I am this, I'm not that. People are fill in the blank. The world is fill in the blank. Like the all these stories, which essentially are the beliefs and the thoughts connected to those beliefs. We have these beliefs as our filter, how we go about life. Because if we didn't have any filters, unconscious filters of beliefs and values and all of that, if we didn't have that, then there'll be this big overwhelm of information. There's so much information coming into our senses all the time, from what we see, what we hear, what we feel. And we need to make sense of that. So the way that we make sense of that, the way that our mind makes sense of that, is through the beliefs. The beliefs is like this blueprint, it's like this map that we go through life with, and everyone has a different, slightly different map, different beliefs. So we can have these beliefs, and sometimes these beliefs can be very helpful. So, for example, don't place your hand in a burning, like a hot flame. That's a pretty useful thing to be aware of, because like if you have the belief that placing your hand in a hot flame will burn you, then that can keep you safe. Or you need to always check both directions before crossing the road. Like that's a useful belief to hold on to for safety, protection. Though sometimes we can have these beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm fill in the blank. I'm like, I've heard it all in the sessions, and so many people think that they're alone in these beliefs and in these thoughts, and they're literally saying this. Every client is saying more or less the same thing, just in slightly different words. Underneath, it's all to do with this: I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm like feeling a lack at some level in terms of themselves. And this is the thing, this is what the inner critic, that negative self-talk, loves to focus on. It's the lack and the comparison and the limited perspective of ourselves and the world. And I'm going to be specifically focusing on the I am statements today, and the perspective that the negative self-talk can have on ourselves. So rather than the world, because obviously we can have many beliefs about the world and about others, but today's topic is more about self-talk, like negative self-talk. Like, how do we talk to ourselves? What do we say to ourselves? So much of what we're actually saying to ourselves is repeated. Just like this continuous loop, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's repeated, and it's like the same thing the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and the same thoughts and the same beliefs pop up. Now, in the self-awareness space, there's a lot of focus on just ignore the inner critic, that negative self-talk, like just push past it and ignore it. And whilst on some level that can be helpful sometimes, in a sense, that is kind of bypassing it and missing the gift that it offers. And yes, the inner critic does offer gifts. It's just disguised in a funny way. It's disguised in a way that essentially what it's saying underneath, there's an underlying message, and it's saying to you, go on, are you going to believe everything that I'm telling you, or are you going to live your life regardless? Are you going to connect to love regardless? Essentially, that's the message underneath. Yet sometimes and often, like what we do is that we focus so much on the story and we believe that to be true, and we live life according to that story, forgetting that we are actually the writer, that we can rewrite it. So, what I want to share today is a quick, simple tip that can really help us like get out of that loop. Though first, before using this tip, it's really important to start reframing the inner critic. Like start looking, start seeing things differently, and start transforming our relationship with it. Because if we start seeing it as this big thing, like, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and we're taking it as gospel, and we're living our lives according to it, or we notice that we're talking to ourselves in a negative way, and then we beat ourselves up even more afterwards for thinking negatively. It's like, oh, I was just thinking bad about myself. I shouldn't be doing that. We're just continuing the cycle. We're just shaming ourselves for having negative self-talk that was often about shame and blame in the first place. It's just this continuous cycle. So it's important to really look at it through different eyes and start opening up, even if in the beginning that's hard, like just opening up this new perspective just for a moment. Like, I wonder, what if this negative self-talk is one of my biggest teachers? Just consider that for a moment. What if negative self-talk is one of my biggest teachers? Yes. A teacher on how not to live life, a teacher on not to take everything that it says as gospel, a teacher in highlighting any limiting beliefs that we might have, especially from childhood. That essentially, that's what the inner critic is doing. It's repeating and bringing up to our awareness limiting beliefs that we have picked up on earlier on when we were younger. So if we heard something in the playground as a child and people were laughing at us, or we didn't understand something, then maybe we decided in that moment that we're stupid. And we said to ourselves, oh, I'm stupid. And then what can happen sometimes is that belief can pop up in the form of negative self-talk later on. If we don't deal with it and we don't really look at the root cause, it can pop up again. And then that's the go-to self-criticism. And we say to ourselves, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. And we're just repeating a pattern from when we're younger. Sometimes when we hear criticism or judgment or what we perceive at the time to be criticism or judgment from parents or caretakers, like if they were angry with us about something, or they were stressed or overwhelmed, or we as a child we did something or created a mess, or did something that wasn't helpful, and then they shared their perspective on that, and sometimes that can come out in a way that feels very harsh for a very young child. So maybe they said something along the lines of like, oh, don't be silly, or don't be stupid. Then in that moment, sometimes, not the case for everyone, but sometimes people decide in that moment, I'm stupid. So then again, like we're essentially, what we're repeating are these decisions, these beliefs that we've created in childhood, like whether that's something we've heard someone else say to us, or whether that's something we've decided about ourselves according to a situation that we didn't really understand. Essentially, at the core of all of it is us deciding that, though there can be influence. And what I've noticed that often how we criticize ourselves has a very similar tone to how we felt criticized by our parents, and how we praise ourselves has a very similar tone according to how our parents praised us. we're just repeating the pattern, we're repeating it. So it can really go down to the specific words as well. Like the words that I use to praise myself and give love to myself are very similar to words that my parents would use with me. And the same with the criticism as well. This is something that so many people experience, and I've seen this time and time again in sessions with clients as well. So if we're saying to ourselves, I am this, I am that, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm blah, 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 like whatever the inner critic is saying, like first step is just to get curious and to see the inner critic as a teacher. It's a teacher, and it's not something to run away from. It's not something to bypass. It's not something to shove away and ignore and like, oh, it's bad, it's bad. Essentially, what it is deep down is the inner child wanting to communicate something from the past. It's the messenger. Is wanting to communicate how it felt in the past, and it's just come up again in the moment by a certain trigger or a certain experience that is similar, that's popped up. So then that gets fired, and then that negative self-talk comes in. So that pattern continues. So that's the first step, just to make sure that we really acknowledge it, we learn from it, and we can see it as this wonderful teacher first, before rushing to techniques to get rid of it. The more we do that, the more we transform our relationship with it, the less we'll need techniques to get rid of it, because it ceases to be this big issue. It's like, oh, there I go again. There's some negative self-talk. Okay, like what's really true? What's really true here? What's really true? So I'm going to be sharing a few sentences that can be really helpful. So that's one, what's really true? Like just to clear away any of the judgments and the assumptions and the generalizations and everything that the mind loves to do, is just to delete and distort and generalize. So just getting back to like, okay, what's the reality? What's really true? Like what's the actual situation? And what are assumptions? What are generalizations? What are deletions? Am I missing part of the picture? Am I overlooking something? So that can be like one useful thing to do. And another thing that I wanted to talk about, and the reason why I called this like like a quick simple tip to move away from negative self-talk, is in NLP we have the de-identification pattern, which is one of the linguistic tools, and it can be really helpful to move away from any negative self-talk. So when we're saying to ourselves, I am, fill in the blank, and if there's a negative phrase there, we can ask ourselves, is that all that I really think I am? Aren't I more than that? So even just that sentence, aren't I more than that, can be really helpful. Because often when we're focused on a problem, or we're focused on an aspect of ourselves or a habit or something that we've done, or the way that we do things, or like just how we are, or like physical appearance, this is a big one where a lot of judgments can come up. Sometimes the focus can be so limited and we're just focused on one thing, and we're focused on the problem or what we perceive to be a problem. And just by focusing on that, we're missing everything else. This is why asking ourselves questions can be so helpful. It interrupts the pattern, like breaks that loop. So like, I'm this, I'm that, oh, I'm stupid, blah, 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 blah. That repeated loop. And we ask ourselves the question, aren't I more than that? Aren't I more than that? What am I that's not? And then whatever the previous statement was. So for example, I'm stupid. Is that all that I really am? Aren't I more than that? What am I that's not stupid? This is the thing. We're like a puzzle. I like to see human beings as a puzzle. We're made up of all these different pieces, all these different parts, all these different qualities, all these different aspects of ourselves. We're not just one thing. When we're considering everything like the personality and all of that, if you're just focused on the very core essence, that light, that soul, that being within, then of course there's that one thing. Though looking at everything in this human experience, we've got in the human aspect, the human realm, and this personality, this ego that we have many different qualities. We've got many different beliefs. We've got different parts of ourselves, different qualities that come out in different situations. And they're all interlinked and they're all part of us. And when we're only focused on one thing, and especially one thing that we consider to be a problem, then that's when it can be a little bit not very kind and not very gentle and not the best thing really, because we're just focused on problem and we're just forgetting that we're so much more. So if someone considers themselves as ugly, or someone considers themselves as lazy, or someone considers themselves as hopeless, or like whatever it is, I am this, I am that, I'm whatever. They are so much more than just that. And often that is a very limited perspective of who they truly are. Perhaps they're not lazy, perhaps they're very good at relaxing. Perhaps they're not hopeless, perhaps they just haven't woken up to the light and the capabilities within. It's all about how we see things, the perspective. It's really important. So if there's a particular belief or thought that you notice that is repeating and it's a negative self-talk, that just practice that. Aren't I more than that? It's start opening up the perspective and considering like, what else are you? And this is, again, this is not to bypass, this is not to run away from the initial criticism or judgment, because we want to get curious about that. And where does that come from? Like, well, when did I first decide that? And then we can go into, aren't I more than that? Aren't I more than that? And that helps to break the cycle. So it's so important when there's negative self-talk, so important to ask ourselves these questions. And then we can like step out of that loop. It's like this wheel that just continues and continues. And we can step out of that and take a step back and actually look at the bigger picture. It's like, okay, yes, there's more. There's more. Looking at the wholehearted picture of ourselves, not just the limited picture. Seeing everything, light and shadow. There cannot be like you cannot have like just shadow. There's light also there. In this world of polarities, we have everything. We got the human side, we got the energetic, the soul, the light, like whatever label you want to use, side, like the being side, human being. We have everything. So there is so many that we're made up of this wonderful puzzle of pieces that get put together and create this person of who we are in this human experience. So these are just a few simple, quick tips. So practice that. Let me know in the comments section how it goes. And if you want more, and if you're in the Barcelona area, and especially if you're a mother, or you know of a mother, then perhaps you want to share the information, then this Saturday, so if you're watching the recording of this, the date might have passed, but I will have other events or other things on offer, so you can find out what's going on at the time. But at the time of this going live, this Saturday in Barcelona, we have a wonderful workshop. So it's part of a three-part workshop. So we got workshop 1, workshop 2, and workshop 3. The first workshop is this Saturday, and it's all about self-criticism. It's all about judgments. It's all about self-criticism, and this is especially focused at mothers because let's face it, like becoming a mother is such a huge, huge experience and a huge thing to go through. And often there can be this feeling of once you become a mother, like the old you's gone. And sometimes it can feel like where's that gone? Like who am I? Like who am I now? And then of course all the judgments come in of am I doing things right? Am I parenting right? Am I a good mother? Like all these judgments can come in and self-criticism. And that's exactly what we'll be covering on Saturday. It's really talking about self-tenderness. Like how can we bring a little bit more self-tenderness to ourselves so that we can show up for our children with so much more tenderness as well. Like when we're able to like be tender with ourselves, we're opening up space to the capacity to be so much more tender with others. It's really important. So there are 3 workshops. Saturday is about self-criticism. There's another in June, which is all about body image, which is a huge topic, rewriting the story on negative self-talk about body image. And then in July, there's a 3rd workshop, which is all about authentic confidence and stepping into your power as a mother and really recognizing that, yes, you're a mother. Or if you watching this, you're not a mother, then you may know of a mother that this could be beneficial for. It's like recognizing that, yeah, that's one part, that's one piece of the puzzle, but there's everything else as well. And who is that? Who is that? Like recognizing yourself as a mother, as this multi-dimensional woman, or the person that you know who's a mother, they are a multi-dimensional woman. They're not just mother. That's just one aspect of them. So this is what we're going to be covering on Saturday, and it's going to be based on a mix of NLP, creative arts, and some embodiment practices to really come back to self-tenderness and be a little kinder with ourselves. So that's on Saturday. If you want more information about that, you can get in touch. So you can send me a WhatsApp. So +34 for the Spanish country code, and then 6226 98673. I can send more information. I can answer any questions about that, and you can have that. And if you're not a mother or you're not based in Barcelona and you're interested in this topic about self-criticism, you'll see in the description that there is an audio program. This is something that I recorded years ago and it's still going. It's still benefiting people. It's something that's so useful, and some of what I've covered today is in there, but there's more as well. So it's a little mini audio program, and it's only, I think it's about 11 euros, so it's super cheap, and you get audios to keep. It's like some audio classes. You get some free classes via audio, and you can, on this topic, on negative self-talk, and you can listen to that. So yes, and if you're interested in more workshops and all of that, make sure that you're subscribed to my newsletter list. That's where I share all the information and extra personal shares that I don't share anywhere else, and also the channeled expansions messages. So every month I share some channeled messages that when I do my practice and I connect to my higher self, or that all-loving part within that we all have, and I write down what comes through. And sometimes the messages are really, really potent and really useful. And I've been sharing them on the newsletter, and people have been enjoying them. So that's there as well. Everything's in the description of this, so you can find out the information in the description of this video. And again, if there are any particular topic requests, you can pop them in the comment section. The next podcast comes out on Wednesday, and that is all about plant medicine, I think. Yeah, so plant medicine, that's the topic for this week, the podcast. and it might not be what people think that I'm going to share. So do check out that episode, and that will come out on Wednesday. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for all your comments, likes, shares, all of that. It really helps. Like every single share, every single comment, every single recommendation, every single share of the podcast, all of that, it just makes such a huge difference. So if you want to have a world where self care and love is valued, and also like that of others, and we treat each other with kindness, and you want to see a world with more love, and you want to support businesses and individuals who are promoting that and helping to create that, then please do share these videos. That's exactly what I'm focused on. And the more we can support independent businesses, wow, what a world we can create, rather than focusing on the big corporations that, yeah, they probably have enough money to deal with. So thank you so much for all the support, and I will be back next week, same time, 7 p.m. Central European time, with another topic. Much love to you.